everybody, and welcome to the Positively Awesome Wrestling Podcast. That's PAW for short. We are on episode 9. That means we are one episode away from hitting them double digits, baby. As always, I am joined by everybody's favorite, Tidey. I don't even know how to say JD's last name, so you're
McDonough.
McDonough?
Yep.
Tidey McDon't Google me. There we go. We got Tidey McDon't Google me. How you doing today, bud?
Doing good, man. I'm really excited to talk about NXT stuff. I love the main event, so I'm just happy as a wrestling fan right now.
And our newest member to the team, he joined us a few weeks ago. Such a great addition. We just decided to make it full time. It's the El Capitan. He is my buddy tonight. He is my buddy next week. But tomorrow, he is my enemy. How are you doing?
I'm doing good, all things considered. It's been an exceptionally busy last 3 days, but I'm doing really good, as bad as I could be doing. Had the table, worked all day Friday, then partied a little bit Friday night working on my book, watched Nick's show, then Saturday did the table, drove south for a little getaway trip, watched NXT, went out and hit a few joints, got up this morning, drove back another hour, cooked a burger really quick, hopped in the shower, watched the pod, finished our booking, did the show with Dan, took a nap, and here I am.
Bro, busy weekend. I did a lot of driving last week, and I got to cap it off last night. So I relaxed today as much as I possibly could. I actually watched NXT. For all the people out there, when is Jimmy going to watch NXT again? I watched NXT last night. Probably not the show I should have watched, though.
No, it was not.
Let's go ahead and get these comments out of the way, and we'll start on the show. We really got to have it. Man, I tried to make this happen for you. I really did. I tried to Photoshop something real quick, but I just ran out of time. Couldn't make it happen. Maybe later this week, though, I can do that for us. We all need to see it. Sean Spears. I don't get this one. I don't like Sean Spears, though, because he blocked me on Twitter, and I still don't know why. What is up, Nick? Thank you for joining, buddy. Good to see you. Looking good, babe. No, you are looking good as you look way better than I do, babe, but I appreciate it. Got Nick. Hello, Dave. Yep. Show 10. That's right. Show 10. There we go. I get it now. There we go. It'll be perfect 10th episode. I'll come up with something special. I'll try. We'll make it about Sean Spears. How about that? Anyway, just joking. That's not going to happen. We're going to jump right into the show. We'll change the format up a little bit. We're still finding the groove of things. We got extra person now, so we're going to change it up a little bit. Instead of us focusing on 3, we're each going to pick one favorite thing from last week's television of professional wrestling to just basically gloat about. This is why we love watching the wrestling shows every week. I'm going to pick one. Tidey's going to pick one right here, and then El Capitan's going to pick one. We're going to break it down, talk about why we love it. If someone tries to question it, we smack them out the room. Then after that, we're going to talk about something that El Capitan brought up last week, NXT call-ups that fumbled. Why they fumbled, what could have been done to prevent it, we're just going to break them down. We each got one, did some homework this week. It wasn't really homework. We just picked names out of hat. And, yeah, we're going to break those down. So, without further ado, the MJF Steven Seagal promo. Yeah, we'll touch on it. We'll touch on it. Did somebody say Steven Seagal? What?
Trust me, had that been Steven Seagal in the ring cutting that promo with MJF and he didn't punch him, I would have burned everything I have that is MJF.
I would be gloating about it already if it was Steven Seagal in there. Steven Seagal versus William Regal. There we go. Make it happen, Captain.
Regal would stretch him in about 20 seconds.
So, first up, there was a few things I could have went with here. I'm going to go with the one thing that just, I guess, surprised me because that I'm officially like a Bobby Lashley fan at this point. And I'll reiterate something I say constantly. This is something I never thought was going to happen. He was always as boring to me.
Yes.
And earlier this year, we had Brock versus Bobby, the match we've been waiting for so long. These two big dudes go in there, beat each other up. And it was horrible. And
It
everyone was
was.
like,
I was there for that match.
yeah,
It was
yeah,
god awful.
yeah. And everyone was so excited for the build up. They're going like, we're going to have MVP and Paul Heyman going back and forth on the mic at each other. Even that just wasn't anything special. It was like, what is going on? Brock was the most memorable person on the microphone during that program. And it was like, man. But this time around, I was like, okay. First thing I like is the fact that this man right here is now a part of a program, feud, whatever you want to call it. It's El Captain's favorite picture ever made, Tractor Brock. But Brock's involved in a feud that doesn't involve the world title. And I think that's very significant right now. That tells me this is something he kind of wants to do. He probably wants to run it back and fix that god-awful match that happened at Rumble. That would be my only reason to think, like, yeah, I'll do this one again. It's not the world title. It's not his thing. He's going to come back and right that wrong. Bobby, he's legit. He's reminds me of a guy that I would just fear. Before, I never got that. Now, I'm like, yo, get that man away from me. He's going to hurt me. And the way that this whole segment played out on Raw, I missed like the first the first minute of it. I didn't see Brock come out. I don't know who came out first. I just know what happened after whoever came out second happened. And they just beat the shit out of Brock Lesnar. And I was like, okay, you have my attention. This is the fact that these two are able to have a better segment than they were when they had MVP and Paul Heyman at their side it's mind-blowing to me. It's absolutely mind-blowing to me because MVP is Paul Heyman is like they fell flat. These guys didn't. They're just going to beat the hell out of each other. And I cannot wait. I know Tidey is itching to talk about this because Bobby is his guy. He's so happy I'm praising Bobby for once.
Yes.
What did you think about the segment, man?
Oh, oh yeah. I was like, man, Bobby better whoop his ass this time. And Bobby put him through that table, knocked him out. Knocked him through the wall, speared his ass. This is what Bobby needed to look more ferocious because the first segment was Bobby who, and that was the part you said that got over. And that pissed me off because I'm like, you're gonna call him Bobby who? You ain't even fought him yet, man. Come on, you can't do that. You haven't even been on the basketball court yet. How you gonna call him Bobby who? And that got Bobby some disdain. Like, yeah, it's right. It's Brock Lesnar. How's he gonna whatever? So I knew at this time if they're gonna go face to face, Bobby he needed to get that leg up because I'm sick of people saying that Brock can squash him in real life and all this other stuff. Bullshit. You see the muscles on that man? He ain't gonna squash him easily. That's gonna be one tough ass grape.
They're both they're both freak athletes, man. They're both freaks. It's
Bobby got his up. I'm happy.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Lashley was like an Army Ranger or some kind of not like special force. Well,
no,
I guess Army Ranger is.
So he was a
he learned how to do things to the human anatomy.
Yes. He started off as a wrestler in high school, and I think it was, I don't know don't quote me on it, but I think he didn't think it was going to take him anywhere. But then the military saw it, and they kind of snatched him up, and he did some wrestling through that while he was doing the basic training stuff. I don't know.
Okay.
And that's kind of like his background as far as like the wrestling and his ability to hurt somebody. He's always just been a freak athlete. He's just now a freak athlete that's massive. So I don't see how anybody could think Brock would just run through him and squash him. Nah, they both big boys. They both know how to hurt people. So I'm glad that that's how the segment went. I hope we don't see them together again for like 2 weeks. I want us to be able to kind of just sit and bathe in what we got to watch because it was awesome. It was very simple yet very effective, and I loved it. And I probably would have picked. No, I probably wouldn't have. I don't know. This really was my favorite segment of the week. Nobody took one from me. I really did enjoy this one because it stuck with me. There was other things that I feel like I could probably nitpick a little bit, but that's not what I do. That's not what I'm here for. So I'll just leave it at that. Captain, if you got anything you want to add to Bobby and Brock murdering each other, feel free. Go ahead now.
Well, while I've made it clear I'm really starting to sour on Brock, the point that you made that this is not a world title situation. We're not going to, knock on wood, we're not going to get Brock v. Roman 17.0. I think, that fuse has done fizzled. But I like seeing him at least do this with Lashley because, as I think you guys have said on the show for the last few weeks, Lashley needs something. And what it is, I don't know. We've mentioned different, does he need a makeover? Does he need a mouthpiece? Does he need hair plug, put in? What does he need? But maybe, and if Brock is willing to do business, if Bobby can get a convincing, clean win over Brock, that would really boost Lashley back up. The segment was okay. How many times do we see guys go through the barricade now every week?
It's
how many
played out? It's very played out. I do enjoy seeing Brock get put through it, though. There's something satisfying about seeing it happen to Brock.
It was nice to see the script get flipped there, but the one thing I liked about it, and I tweeted it the minute it happened, we got an old school Attitude Era hot start to Raw.
Yeah.
And I loved the segment for the sake of what they did, as not so much who was in it, but the fact that it was not your normal opening to a Raw. It was picking up right from last week, because that was sort of the overhang from last week was Brock showing up, and it wasn't a promo. It wasn't a whatever, but it was, let's get down here and fight and let's go at it. Yeah. And that is something Raw has desperately been lacking, is hot starts, good segments. Let's get this show on the road.
It reminded me of a good pay-per-view, like a good match to start a pay-per-view, because you always want that match that's going to just pull people in to start your show. And of all the things that happened on Raw, that was the one thing that had me like, oh shit, okay, what's happening now? And it pulled me in. And if I was one of those people who usually is like, oh, let's see what's happening, and then I'll turn it off because it's gonna suck. If I was one of those people, I probably would have stayed this week, because that was a very cool segment to open up. But I'm not. Thankfully, I'm not one of those people.
It's like, what a shock! Two big guys whipping each other's ass. Oh my God, people still like that? Yes, they do. Do more of it.
No, don't do more of it, because then it waters down when we do get it. That's why less is more.
I didn't say do it every week. I just said do it more often.
They don't have that many big people to do this kind of stuff with you, because you don't like Braun Strowman or Otis.
I love Otis.
I will take
him and David
Brock and Lashley. Keep Otis and Clubfoot Strowbeard away from me.
Nah, bro. I'm definitely looking forward to seeing Brock. Yeah, absolutely. And again, this is not something I would have said after watching what happened last time, because it was a god-awful match. You don't hear me saying that very often about him. Like, it was god-awful. Like, it was, the hype was huge, and they didn't even scratch the surface. So, he just said he sent you a match. That's a good one. I've seen that one. That's a good match. So with that, we're just gonna move right on. It's Tidey's turn. Let me get you set up here real quick, and then you can just take the reins, my man. What we got? Where is it at? Here we go. It's NXT time. You would expect nothing less from Tidey.
Yeah. So NXT, my thing with like say Nick said, he has a problem with the superstars showing up. So I'm going to give my take of someone who's been watching NXT.
Listen up, Nick.
Religiously. No, Nick's got a good point. He really does have
I know. I'm giving Nick shit.
Yeah, Nick's got a good point. But as someone who's watched NXT UK and NXT every single week with my SmackDown on Hulu and my Raw on Hulu, I've been following along what's been going on. So when people got called up, Alba Fire was there for a minute. You got JD, who was there for the last 2 months, a little bit more. Earning his spot. So the new people that came up the last pay-per-view that you guys really liked, Worlds Collide, all those people aren't on NXT right now. And they all disappeared when Gallus gets beat up. They have like a bar fight and they hit some security. So they're like, I guess they're going to jail. So we won't see them for a month or so. And it's been about a month. The same thing with Tyler Bates. They pull him up and then all of a sudden he's gone. And the same thing with Blair Davenport and with Mako. They've been gone. So they were there to fill a lot of spots. If you were to think about who is crazy contender worthy, those are the top people. JD, those are the top people in NXT UK. So that was a contender for Braun right there, because we've seen Braun pretty much spear and do whatever to everybody else. So the superstars that have come up is to give a rub. Like we said last week, you know, if they're going to tune in for D-Generation X, maybe they'll see the people in between. So the part of Sonya Deville, who else was it? Nakamura, because that was the Tony D'Angelo storyline, which they did a beautiful job of Tony D'Angelo and making Stacks suffer. But Stacks kept going against Tony's wishes the last couple of weeks. And Tony's like, you know what? And Tony's been getting a little stale. So now it's time for Tony to do something. And it hurt Tony to see his guy get beat up. He called Nakamura. Nakamura does the whole money thing on the outside. Like, yeah, you paid me to be here. And then Vic Joseph, whatever his name is, because he ain't Booker T, he says, Tony wishes the last couple of weeks. I like Vic, though. No, he's really cool. He's good. You know, he's a good guy, commentator. But he's like, Nakamura, he was here for just one night. So they kind of hint who's there for a while. Apollo is definitely there.
I think I read that Nakamura will actually be there for a little bit.
Man, don't say it, man. Vic is a liar then. Booker T should have corrected him immediately as a commentator.
It was just a rumor I saw, so I don't know if it's fact. I did see it, so I'll point it out.
So my point with that, even the Good Brothers were there with Cameron Grimes. I like Good Brothers back then, so I thought they were just cool. Everybody says, you know, I've heard some stuff that would say they can't wrestle as good, whatever. Rhea was there. Rhea finally gets like a full-on match. Rhea destroys Roxanne Perez. Sonya was there. She said a thing about her and Mandy being we've had some falling out. We had disagreements, but she's still my best friend. So Sonya's getting a little rub herself from going there, being around the most popular thing there, which is Toxic Attraction. But the point, like I said earlier, was that maybe you'll see a superstar there and make you want to tune in, since apparently the believable people to take out the champions may not be here, and they're on a month hiatus right now. They're taking a break. Maybe they're moving to Florida. Florida got destroyed by a hurricane a couple of weeks ago. Man, come on. You know, down at the NXT training center. So that's my take on it. And I'm okay with the superstars being there because it brings some eyeballs. Now, if we keep all four of those people there every week, that is a difference. I don't think it's going to go in that direction. But Nick is right. It's taking away the time. But who's going to beat, you know, Braun? Who's going to beat Mandy? Whatever. Make those coming. Blair Davenport's coming still.
Yeah.
My big thing is maybe they'll see something good. And what I saw on the show was the KO show. That's somebody we want to see at any time. KO talks to JD, Ilya, and to Braun Steiner, as Nick would say. If he gets called up, call him Braun Steiner. That's what he said. But agree. JD was the only one on that mic that seemed comfortable. And the funny thing is that KO was roasting him. KO was like, man, you look weird.
JD, don't Google me.
Yeah, he called him weird, creepy. And if you've seen his promos last week, damn, man, it is working. Like, he's doing some hyperbolic training. He was doing the Karate Kid on in the forest on some weird plank on a bridge. And he's been talking weird stuff. He cut himself with a pen, basically, when he signed in blood.
Yeah, I saw that one.
Freaking out Braun. But his character's spot on. He's not flinching in his character. So he should have been derailed by Kevin Owens. Kevin Owens went off on him twice, said his mother doesn't even want to see him anymore. His mother thinks he's creepy. And man, he kept a straight face the whole time, and he fired back on Ilya and both of them. And Ilya didn't look comfortable, either did Braun. So the idea is maybe there's a star that you will see. The main event, which I'll get at, was I'm just going to name off a couple moves and I'm done. So Jordan Devlin does one beautiful snap suplex on Braun. Everybody says that maybe he can't change up the style. I think Nick said that. When he came back stronger in NXT UK, he put on more weight. The dude hits, he can go slow. And the dude can go fast. Also did a hell of a hard clothesline on Ilya, about took his head off in the beginning of the match. And those chops that he was doing, those were big boy Walter chops, man. Ilya was throwing some Walter chops too. Northern Lights suplex. Spanish fly on the outside. And
that was sick. Yeah.
The 450 splash he did after Braun kicked off Ilya, did a 450 splash, got out of the 3 count, jumped on Braun. That's when Booker about lost his shit. Booker's like, JD McDonough just made my Fave 5. this boy got all the tools, and they praised him so much after the Spanish Fly as well. And the fact that someone like Kevin Owens can take hard bumps, man, they Frankenstein his ass off the top rope into a power bomb. Talk about taking spots. Talk about dangerous spots. That Spanish Fly ain't no joke. Besides him doing moonsaults, the biggest thing that I would say was the scissor leg trip that he did in between the 2 and 3rd rope when he kicked Braun off of him, tripped up Ilya's feet, like did like a scissor leg thing, pulled him in, tripped him up, and did a 720. I don't even know what that move's called, but he spins sideways, did a 720 corkscrew from outside of the ring onto him. So if you think the guy isn't versatile,
he was defying the laws of geometry.
and why does this mean so much to me as a fan, and why it's my favorite moment when there was some really cool stuff on SmackDown and Raw? Because I followed this. JD pinned Ilya. He was an NXT UK champion, but Johnny Saint came out and said his foot was under the rope. Johnny thinks he is a ref all of a sudden. He's never came out in a match because they knew he was going on to bigger, better things. And that was the match to end it. And he also had 2 matches with Dragunov, but that he actually pinned him with a Jordan side suplex. So this just made my day, because for me, JD stuck out, and man, he did good. Booker T was praising him, calling him the top fave 5. Man, that's my favorite moment of the week, period.
I'll touch 3 things on this one. One, he does look weird. Look at that. Look at
it. Hey, come on, man.
He reminds me of the dude from 90 Day Fiance that went all the way down to South America and he wouldn't even get jiggy with his girl.
That's the NXT UK
Look
photo.
That. He looks like he's wearing a hair helmet.
That's even up to date, man. That's the NXT UK photo. That's not fair.
Two. I'm not a hater. I do like him. I think he's really good. I even praised him to my son. My son's like, he doesn't look that good. And I said, shut up, little man. He's a young version of Finn Balor. Just watch him. You'll learn. So just to say, I'm not hating on the man. I am just saying, look, he's wearing a hair helmet, man. It's right there. 2, David brought this up. Without some main roster guys and gals there, what you have is wrestlers learning from wrestlers who are still learning to be wrestlers. Spot on, which is why I love what they're doing in NXT now, because they're putting the people over there so that they can get some reps in there with someone like Kevin Owens or a Shinsuke or a Rhea Ripley and all these other. I think that's brilliant because they're learning things that the Performance Center can't teach them. They just can't. So it helps. Also, if I'm a Kevin Owens fan and I don't watch NXT, but I really like Kevin Owens, I'm like, all right, I'm going to tune in tonight. And then like the D-Generation X thing happens and I'm like, okay, I kind of like this guy. Maybe I should watch it. So what you were saying, 100%, I agree with that as well. 3, I was thinking about this earlier today. I think what this is going to help do is when these guys and gals get called up to the main roster, I feel like lately they've been flat because people just don't really know who these people are. They're like, they have them show up and it's like, oh, who? They don't do vignettes anymore, which they definitely should be bringing back. You can't just have these guys show up as a surprise anymore. But
should you run them as long as they did for Veer Mahan with no payoff?
I don't think I think you should be doing better vignettes than what they did with Veer Mahan, because his was just literally like, I'm coming. Kind of like AD, hold on, let me get rid of it. Is coming soon. He's coming soon. So don't
underdo it like you did for Veer. Don't overdo it like they did for Glacier. Find some kind of happy medium.
I think
show the track.
What we all agree WWE does fantastic is their video packages.
Yep.
Give me like a month long of video packages of these NXT people. That way, the certain people who do know him can be like, "Oh, he's coming, awesome," and then the people who don't know him can kind of like, "Okay, this person looks interesting," and then when they show up, they're like, "Oh, this is the person I've been waiting for." They've fallen off completely with the NXT call-ups lately, which, again, is the topic later. And I think having talent go down is one thing that they're doing right in trying to correct that. So I hope that this helps, because I don't think a lot of the people who are watching NXT are watching WWE. I think there's 2 different fan bases at this point. There are some, don't get me wrong, there are some. But, man, when someone shows up from NXT on WWE, like Braun Breaker, when he showed up on Raw, it was like dead. And that's supposed to be the guy on NXT. I don't think that should be the case. So they need to do something to correct it. So that was the three things. Nothing hating on him, just the fact that he has a hair helmet, man.
I do have a question for Tidey, though. Not necessarily on this, but in relation to what we saw last night with Melo losing. Is he heading to the main roster now? You don't think so?
Braun, baby.
You think they? I'm saying they took the belt off of Melo, and he to me seems more ready than Braun, but that's just
absolutely
my own opinion.
But if you look at the NXT roster, and I think Ty will agree with me when I'm done here, there's nobody on that roster that Braun hasn't beat that you can look at and believably say, yeah, he can beat Braun, except for Carmelo.
Yeah. He's the veteran that's there. JD just got there. I know JD could beat him. Shit, Ilya could beat him on a one-on-one, but the thing is that needs to be built. Carmelo has built that over time, and JD will too.
Give me an Ilya and Carmelo feud after Melo wins. I think Melo's the call to beat Braun, and then you can send Braun up to the main roster, which everyone's just clamoring for. They'll be wrong, and they'll see it, but I hate to say that because I really have high hopes for Braun, but he ain't ready. He definitely ain't ready, and hopefully they won't send him up, but they probably will. But I think Melo's the guy to beat him, and that's why he didn't win last night. Yeah. And when he lost it in a way that was kind of like, oh, he wasn't ready.
So, and that's the point of the Ilya history with Devlin. They're going to keep fighting because it's not over. The NXT UK thing that happened was a travesty, and they've hinted at that. So it's still going to be going down. So perfect time for Melo to go against Braun. I think Jimmy's spot on with that.
More praise here for JD real quick. Not sure he gets to the world title on the main roster, but I can see an NXT world title and some US and IC title reigns in his future, which is perfect. I want them to build up that mid card so damn good. I want it to be the highlight of the show. I really do. And with people like JD, it can happen.
To that point, Jimmy, though, why would you invest that much time, effort, money, training, etc. into a guy, call him up to the main roster, and not have plans for him to, yes, become a US or an IC champion, or maybe both, and then move him to that world title spot? Why would you? I don't see why you wouldn't think, okay, this guy's going to be our world champion. And
how many guys who never won the world title who stuck in the mid card were people who drew money though? There ones out there.
Not saying that.
But I know
Scott Hall never was a world champion.
Mr. Perfect, Piper, like there are plenty of them.
But again, like with all the hype and everything that's been surrounding Braun, it's like I gotta think they've got at least.
I was talking about JD. I wasn't talking about Braun.
Okay. My
mistake. I was talking about JD.
I think JD in time can win a title.
Mid card. I see his ceiling being the mid card, which is what he's saying. I agree with what he's saying here. The fact that me and David are agreeing on so much is kind of wild right now. But
David's a smart dude, man.
Yeah, but we usually don't see eye to eye.
That's kind of true.
Jimmy does not see eye to eye with the smart people in Wrestle Buddy.
I don't agree with that at all. I think I'm a pretty smart person myself. With Nakamura, you get experience from the main New Japan. With Owens, the main roster and Ring of Honor, that's valuable stuff. It shows that Braun has never been anywhere else, and it shows that Melo he has. And to counterpoint that real quick, Melo, I think, has been wrestling 3 times as long as Braun. And they wrestle 2 different styles. Just to counterpoint that. Asuka is a prime example of how a mishandled NXT call-up, like seriously won the main event, the first ever Royal and lose to more. We'll touch on that in the second half of the show, which we are almost to. They took Kana and gave us, which was great, and gave us main roster watered down Asuka, definite fumble. Hennig, his example, Scott Hall, Jake Roberts. There's a lot of them. And I'll throw another one out that seems to always get missed in this. He wasn't a great wrestler, but man, he drew money. Godfather. I want more people like the Godfather in the mid card. They're entertaining, they draw money, and they can go. He can go to an extent. He can't go like Melo, but I think you don't need that all the time. I think we all agree. You don't need people who just go all the time. You need people who can counteract those kinds of styles.
Well, the Godfather, don't forget, he went through like 4 or 5 gimmicks in WWF.
And 2 of them were really good. The Godfather was
Godfather.
Yeah. I mean, I love Papa Shango. You know, he had some other gimmicks. Yeah, but I mean, it hit with the Godfather because that was basically just taking a page out of his real life. And oftentimes, when someone just is themselves, turned up to 11,
it was the perfect gimmick for that for that Attitude Era. There was no better gimmick during the Attitude Era than the Godfather. I don't know who to blame, Oscar, Vince McMahon, or the fans, and then Braun with the world title because he.
When in doubt, blame Vince.
Well, he is the one in control.
See, I think Pac could be a world champion in AEW, though. I think so.
Yeah,
I really
do love
enjoy
me
Pac a lot. I've grown to like him a lot more recently. But with that, we are going to move on to El Capitan's favorite part of the week, and if you follow him at all, I don't think it will come as no surprise. Boom.
Yeah. I went back and rewatched this about an hour ago just to make a few notes on it. You know, and me being the history nut, you know, in Wrestle Buddy, I'm always doing this because I'm always trying to, especially like in our fantasy booking, whenever I get stuck on something, I try to go back and think, okay, how were they in a similar spot like this years ago in a WCW or in a territory? You know, how did they book their way towards or out of this? And the note I made was, this is the classic prime example of the old lion, young lion promo, but between a guy who is never going to be in the ring again. Regal, though, still has the street cred among, you know, wrestling fans that if he wanted to, he could still whip just about anybody that he wanted to, especially if he's got his brass buddies with him. And that line he said, you know, I like to use these on folks I like to kiss. But it was so perfect because, again, MJF doing what he does better than anybody in the business is blurring the lines between, you know, listen to that whole story, you know, of him getting the call to go for a tryout match, and you know he's on second, and Malenko tells the first guys after they lock up to get out of the ring, and he told a story that, you know, there's some hoo-ha, there's some fiction in there, but it sounds believable. Just how much, we don't know. But he talked for a good straight 10 minutes. You know, Regal just stood there and let him speak his piece, and then Regal explained everything to him. You know, I saw your talent. I saw what you had. You know, I joined a carnival wrestling when I was it 15, 16 years old, and had grown men pounding my face into mush every single night, bleeding from every hole, which kind of made me squint for a second. But anywho, hey, it's live TV. And he's like, you know, you've had it easy, sunshine. And he's like, if it took an email to get you to where you are right now, that was the line of the segment. Because anyone who's ever been in any kind of an understudy with a very tough taskmaster knows that the really good ones who see something in you aren't going to praise and applaud you all that often, because they see what you could be. But if they praise and applaud you too much, it's going to, you know, fill your ego, and you're going to think you're better than you are when you're not. That was that classic young lion, old lion playing off of that. And sometimes when you have that older taskmaster that is just keeps needling you and needling you and needling you, because they're trying to figure out, what can I do or say to get this person's attention that, yes, I can be great, but you have to do this. A simple email, a simple note. You know, 30 years ago, it could have been a letter you wrote me. It was simple. It was perfect. And the look on MJF's face after he said his piece, Regal said his piece, it was perfect. The facial expression was perfect. And then Regal turning around, you know, with the hands up, like, all right, you got a problem with that? Here I am. Hit me with your prissy little ring, sunshine. He didn't say that, but
quick question before we go any further. Do you think this segment would have been improved had MJF attacked him when he turned his back to him and left him in a bloody mess?
I thought about that when I first saw it. I thought about it the second time I saw it. And then I thought about it again tonight when I rewatched it. I don't know. I'm very 50-50 on it, because, you know, towards the very end, you know, Regal's like, you want to be the devil? You know, well, what could be more devilish than attacking a man, you know, 3 times your age, you know, with his back turned to you?
So,
and I thought it it could have worked either way. So I'm stalled on it. I want to see how it plays out, but I'm undecided on that point.
So I'll touch on it because earlier I said I thought it would have helped the segment, but then I thought about it after the show and I was like, man, I spoke too soon, because then we wouldn't have got the segment at the end of the show where he came and he said, he basically was speaking to Regal and said, I'm going to do it the right way for the first time. I think I would have loved to see MJF come down there, hand him the chip, and then deck him with that diamond ring, and then walk up the ramp to say his piece. I think that would have been icing on the cake for me. Then again, it might have happened, and I'd been like, oh, they went too far, and I don't like it. I don't know. But just in hindsight, I'm like, oh, I think that would have been much more effective.
There's going to be more to this because obviously Regal is the leader of the Blackpool Combat Club. I always use the word that MJF likes to use.
Yeah.
But he's going to be dealing with Jon Moxley for the foreseeable future. We know Regal's going to be there. They're going to have plenty more opportunities to joust with each other. And I would really like if somehow in between here and Moxley, we can get MJF and Bryan Danielson, because we've gotten MJF and Wheeler.
I'll tell you why you saved that. MJF was on the Not Sam show interview. Myself and Tidey, Not Sam Marks here. And I highly suggest you go watch it, Captain.
I've liked what few of his shows I've seen. I haven't seen that.
He has the interview with MJF, and it's fucking phenomenal.
With MJF.
Yes, it is fucking phenomenal. And he talks about Bryan Danielson, and he goes, I'd murder him. Not just on the mic, in the ring. I'm better than him. And the way he's saying it is with such confidence. And Sam's like, come on, man. Better than him in the ring? And he goes, yes. And then he explains why people have this notion of him as to, like, they always forget, like, how good he is in the ring because he doesn't wrestle that much. But when he does, they're like, oh, wait, yeah, he's really good. And him and Bryan Danielson, because then he goes on to praise Bryan Danielson, saying, like, he's underrated on the microphone. And I think me and him could do a lot of magic. I would kill him, but it'd be a lot of magic, and he puts him over. So I want to see that be his first feud after he wins the title. I don't want to give that away before the title. I think that's
Is that assuming Moxley finally goes on this vacation he's been postponing for however long?
And I want to ask you this, dude. Did you watch the whole show?
The whole show? No, I didn't watch it. It was on Tuesday. Did you see Adam
Page get hurt?
Huh?
Did you see Adam Page get hurt?
Yeah, I went back and watched that. And
so I can't remember his name. The Excalibur.
Yeah.
On commentary, when they had to kind of scramble to fix things, it almost sounded like he was about to announce Adam Page as the world champion. But then he's like, and then the AEW world champion at Jon Moxley. Do you think there's any chance that Adam Page was supposed to win that match and Moxley was supposed to go on his vacation?
I'm going to say something here that I've been waiting. I said it in our message board, but since, I've had a chance to go back and watch it several times, I'm a little less convinced of it, but I'm still mostly on it. And I may catch a lot of heat from people for this. Does anyone remember the Monday Night Raw after Survivor Series 1995? Owen and Shawn Michaels.
Vaguely.
Well, you were booking a show around that time, if I remember correctly. No, that was 94. It all runs together. But
that was after my booking, so I didn't get to see that one.
I had this thought that Hangman's going into business for himself again and is sandbagging Moxley, because the shot did not, and I looked at it from every single angle that I've been able to find. I did not see how that was a hard enough shot to cause a concussion. And it made me think back to when Michaels didn't want to do the job for Owen Hart and he collapsed in the middle of their match on Raw. So, and they've released that he got a concussion. I'm going to assume for the sake of argument that that's true, but I'm 49% saying I'm sensing Soma Sean level sandbagging here, because after what Paige did with Punk, I could see it being them just covering up for him, saying, I'm not doing a job to Moxley.
I'll cut you off. I don't think it was the clothesline, lariat, whatever one that you want to call it. I don't think that's what gave him the concussion. I think it's the way he landed, because he landed like right here. He didn't get completely under on that flip, which is why I say, and again, I know it's a move that gets used a lot, and that's the problem to me. I don't think it should be used as much. I think it takes away from the effectiveness of it. Like when I see it happen, I want to be like, oh, damn, they really turned him inside out. But I see it like 3 times a week now, and it's like, that's just part of the thing.
Stepping into the ring is dangerous.
Yeah, I think he literally just didn't get completely around, and he hit his head, and that's what caused the concussion. I'm glad it wasn't a neck injury because that's what I thought it was at first.
I've had concussions before, and I've had to hit my head a whole hell of a lot harder than that.
Some people different though, man. I literally jumped off a shed when I was younger and put my knee right into my forehead and got up like everything was okay. And then I fell right on my face playing football, like tripped up and fell on my face, and I had a concussion. Like it's just the way because it's your brain rattling. So it just might be that one little thing that caused it to do it.
I'm buying it for now, but if say 5-10 years from now something comes out, it wouldn't surprise me if it was a sandbag.
Here you go. David's agreeing with me again. Look at that. It was how his head hit the canvas, not the clothesline. Yeah, 100%.
Still, even that didn't look like a hard enough bump for me, but I'm going with the doctors for now.
There was nothing softening the fall. Like it was literally just head, and then everything went with it. So I'm with you, bro. I want to rip Hangman and Page apart myself. I'm not gonna do it. I get it, but after watching it, I was like, nah, he definitely hit his head wrong. That's what I took from it. But now that we've gotten that out of the way, we will move on to the next portion of the show: fumbled NXT call-ups. Yeah, here you go. I've gotten concussions. And like I said, I've gotten concussions. Core Jade and Roxanne could have got one last night from falling off the damn stage into the couch.
That was a miserable spot.
It looked like Vince jumping off showing Rob Gronkowski how to fall. Anyway, so first up, Tidey's going to go first here on the fumbled NXT call-ups. There was a lot we could have went with, unfortunately. I hate that's the case. I really do, because there's been a lot of people in NXT I loved, and then they got there, and I'm like, what happened? First up, I totally agree with Tidey on this one, and I might have went with this one had he not, so I'm glad he did. Shayna Baszler. Anybody that did not get to watch what she was doing in NXT missed out. Tidey, let them know. Just let them know.
Shayna Baszler, combined reign, 548 days, 416 days. So second to, I believe, Asuka in that regard. She beat Mia Yim, Io Sky, Candice LeRae, Bianca Belair, I think twice Bianca, Kairi Sane, Tegan Nox, Dakota Kai, etc.
She was the first one to beat Bianca.
Yeah. And the thing about her is she was so damn believable as a champion. I mean, like, and yeah, there was some dirty heel moves, of course, but we accept that because that is the nature of the beast.
She was a great heel.
But damn, that Karakuda clutch, dude. I mean, people would try to do flips on her, and she would catch their ass out of midair and sit their ass down as they're going for like a, what is that called, a butt bomb, whatever the hell, right into the Karakuda clutch. And, and the way she did it, anyways, her going up to the WWE roster, I looked it up. My roommate told me, I was like, was it? She bit Becky in the neck.
Like a vampire, bro. Everywhere. Right on the back of the neck.
I'm like, what the hell is going on? And she had blood coming out. And I think she said, yeah, at one point with blood in her mouth.
Yeah.
And Becky was like selling it outside. Oh, don't touch it. Don't touch it. But like, and then people talking about vampire shit and all this crap. I'm like, look, man, this is the girl that came out in the leather jacket that was literally unbeatable and brutalized. Talking about curb stomping someone's elbow down and breaking their elbow and shoulder out. She did the same thing to Nia Jax before Nia Jax went for a while. But the thing is, they gave her, yes, a tag team championship, but they presented her immediately, I believe, in the wrong way. And even though they gave her tag team championships, it's as if they knew somehow they want to stick with the mystique that we can't put her in the singles run and have her in the main event and beating the likes of Charlotte, Sasha, Becky, really, even though I believe she had her first match with Becky. What are you going to say, Jimmy?
I was going to cut you off. You're bringing up the Four Horsemen, so I want to just add this in here. I think where Shayna went wrong was the Elimination Chamber. They made her look way too fucking legit.
She
She
was
just ran through those girls. Then at WrestleMania, Becky pleaded with them, let Shayna beat me. And they didn't let her. And that was the end of Shayna Baszler right there.
Yep. And they had to put her with tag teams.
Yeah.
So
sorry to interrupt, but I wanted to get that in there because that annoyed the piss out of me. And just goes to show why Becky's the GOAT. Go ahead.
But Becky pushed, but Becky should know. Becky knows. But put her into tag team. All of her shit on Raw, man, her Raw talk, SmackDown talk didn't matter because they were carrying it to both brands. She was so good on that mic. Man, she was pretty much roasting anything and anybody, even the commentators. It was brutal. She's just such a badass bad guy. And it's just like, I don't think they can really put her up against, and Nia Jax the same way, besides people saying she injuring people. I love Nia Jax. I don't care anybody said. But, you couldn't beat them kind of thing because they already had that character. So, anyways, she should have got one championship. If she was that much of a badass and beat Bianca, she should have been pushed closer to the main event title, but they put her towards tag team. Now it seems like they may be correcting it with the whole Ronda thing that you even showed me on YouTube. I hope so, because Shayna is past due. I mean, if you want someone, like my roommate was saying, there hasn't been someone that's just tattooed up, just a badass. When she's in that leather jacket.
Rhea Ripley.
Well, okay. Yeah, you know what Rhea's doing, I'm Dom's, dominatrix mother right now, and I'm getting sick of it to an extent. I really am. Corey keeps hinting at it every week. Like, we have to do this on PGTV, man. Come on. I already know what y'all are hinting at. I don't need you to put it down my earlobes. But yeah, Rhea, she was cool in a sense. But Shayna is a legitimate badass. Yeah. In that jacket,
it's credible. She has credibility.
Yeah. So, anyways, that I'm when we run out of time. So that's all I'm going to say about that. She should have got a main event scene. And she wasn't able to, and that's not who Shayna is.
Two things before we switch it over to Captain. He can take the reins on his NXT fumbled call-up. One, I like Nia Jax for one reason and one reason only, and it is this right here.
Yeah, the punch. I was going to say, two people made Becky bleed.
And then two, back to the JD McDonough.
Whatever.
I told you he looked like a dude from 9 Day Fiance. My girl just reminded me what his name was. I couldn't think of what it is. So you look at this guy. This is JD. This is the guy from 9 Day Fiance. Look at him. They're the same people, bro. They're the same people. And funny little tidbit, that dude's name's Tim. He's also a wrestling fan. Met him at Starcade.
I ain't got hair, man. I'm bald.
They both got hair. They got hair helmets. Look at them. They're the same damn, and they weigh the exact same amount of pounds too. But
they should have put JD on the show. He looked way better than that dude. He don't look whatever, man. Dude's a stud.
I gotta give you some shit, man. I just gotta give you some shit. So with that, I'm gonna switch it over to Captain. He also picked one that I would have loved to sink my teeth into because I've preached this one multiple times. I hate it, but things have happened, and it is what it is. Captain, go ahead and take it away.
Yeah, this one makes me really sad because the very first NXT event I ever watched, it was either an In Your House or a takeover. It was Keith Lee defending the North Atlantic title,
North American title.
North American, yeah, that Melo just dropped.
Digest.
And Lee was the only guy on the card because a friend of mine forced me to watch it. And after it was all said and done, I said, well, I don't think much of anybody that I saw tonight, but that Keith Lee guy, he has got some really serious potential. I kept having these flashbacks to the modern day athletic version of Junkyard Dog. And Dan and I talked a little bit about JYD today on the show. And, he had the look, the body. This was before he packed on a lot of LB. I mean, he was a big, stocky guy, but it wasn't getting like it is now. And then I heard the man speak. I was like, okay, he's not going to be able to cut JYD level promos. He's over as a babyface, but he needs a mouthpiece. And typically you give anyone a mouthpiece or a valet that is almost an instantaneous heel turn, which I thought, I can't buy him as a heel because he's so over with it's tough not to like him, let alone what he does in the ring. It has a great run in NXT. Vince calls him up, doesn't give him a mouthpiece, doesn't really do much with him. And for all the talent that they have at WWE, that no one coached this guy on how to do a promo or how to maybe change his voice to where it's not so Fraser Crane level.
I can't wait to add to that part of this because I'm gonna. But go. I'll let you continue. I just want to come back to that part right there.
But apart from that, the run in WWE stank. He continued to get heavier and heavier. He goes to AEW, which I loved, and the way they debuted him in AEW was
great.
Perfect.
It was great.
You could not. It was maybe the best debut they've ever done.
Come on,
no, in ring, like of someone who's not like a star of Punk's caliber. You know, a guy who's coming in. You're trying to make him a star. It was the perfect way to debut him. And he gets tagged up with Swerve, and I really like Swerve a lot. I think
Swerve is phenomenal.
Swerve and MJF are going to unfortunately wind up carrying that company on their backs because the rest of the roster, other than a handful of guys, obviously FTR, the Acclaimed, the tag team guys.
I'm glad you mentioned Swerve there. I would have never thought that. I'm glad you did because I'm a Swerve mark, man. I love him.
Swerve and MJF are the only two things that I really love about AEW right now, other than seeing Bryan Danielson just be the greatest technical wrestler in the world still going. But then I watched the pay-per-view, the second most recent one, and I keep watching his matches. He can't talk, and his health is starting to worry me because he's getting bigger and bigger. And if you watch his matches from 2-3 years ago to now, he's getting blown up earlier and earlier and earlier in matches to the point where the last 2 matches he had with Swerve as a tag team, Swerve was carrying those matches because you could see Keith literally could not catch his breath. And now I haven't seen him on TV in a while. I'm not sure what they're going to do with him. But now my worry is not only is this going to be a fumble by WWE and not necessarily a fumble by AEW, but get this man the cardiological vascular help that he needs, because if he keeps going like this, hope not, but I don't want to see another Yokozuna situation. Yeah. Yoko broke in. He was a heavy big boy, but he could move. Keith was a heavy big boy. He could move.
He could move until he couldn't.
And Keith is getting dangerously to that point to where he can I don't want to say it out loud because it's pretty obvious in what I've been saying, but he needs to get his health in check before he continues.
Just a few things before we move on to my pick here. Swerve is a future world champion. I really hope so. I when he debuted, I think it was 3 weeks after he debuted, I made the statement that I think he could potentially end up being the best signing AEW has had since Jon Moxley. And I say that as far as like what he can do for the company long term. Obviously, short term, there's been better signings. But what Swerve does is give them something that's literally different than anything else on that show. And I love it. And he can just go in the ring. Keith Lee. WWE, I'm going to shame WWE for this because as great as they are at things, they fumbled so This is the worst one in my opinion, because when he had the Survivor Series moment with Roman Reigns,
this was New York Jets butt fumble.
Roman Reigns,
yes. When he had the moment with Roman Reigns at Survivor Series where they were the last 2, he pinned Seth freaking Rollins and then went toe-to-toe with Roman Reigns. Their number 1 and number 2 guy at the time. He went toe-to-toe with them back-to-back. And then Roman gave him the dap. It was like, okay. Right after that, CM Punk was on Fox, the Fox News, the Fox show where they talk about stuff. And he said right then and there, Keith Lee should win the Royal Rumble after that because he was hot. People were like, they were ready for Keith Lee. They were ready for him. 2 at the Royal Rumble.
3 hit 2 just to continue. CM Punk at some point in this business needs to be given the book of a promotion.
I would love it. Someone said something about having him making a play to buy Ring of Honor and running that. I'd watch Ring of Honor just for that reason.
He needs to have the book somewhere. He is too smart.
2, when Keith Lee showed up at that Royal Rumble that Punk was like, he should win it. It was Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar was dominating. And that face that he gave Keith Lee, like, oh, who the hell is this guy? That was such an impactful. I don't think people probably realize it. There are some people that don't realize how crazy that moment is for Brock Lesnar to just basically give you the sign of approval right there in the ring while he's dominating the entire roster because he's just throwing people out left and right. Mm-hmm. He sees Keith Lee and is like, oh, shit, who's this, Paul? You didn't tell me about this guy. And then that's why I chose this picture because I thought it was such a crazy moment. You have this man go face-to-face with Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, Brock Lesnar, and then you send him back down to NXT and then call him back up 7-8 months later and have him, as David pointed out, growling, calling him Bearcat Lee and all this other bro. They fumbled. They did try with the Randy Orton thing. Health concerns got in the way. He had to leave for a while. I think that also plays into the pounds being added on.
Yeah,
health scare. But man, that one like legit made me mad when they just fumbled it because it was like Keith Lee was so good.
Yeah,
the talking thing you brought up. Jim Cornette had, as much as I think he's old and doesn't understand the business these days, I think he had the perfect thing for Keith Lee because the way he cuts his promos, it's almost like he's talking down to you.
Yep.
Like, listen to me, and I'm going to do this. It's a very heel thing to do. So to not have him as a heel, talking in the way he talks, I don't know if you can even do it these days. Like you said, he's so over with the crowd because they're like, yo, this big man can do this. They can do that. I think 20 years ago, Keith Lee is probably one of the biggest stars in the business. If you have him as a heel doing what he does.
Oh, undoubtedly.
I think that. I think it just.
Imagine the run he and Taker could have had back in 20 years ago. It would have been
great. And I really like the idea of him being a heel, basically talking down. You're not on my level. Like that's so damn good to me, and I'm so mad we never got it. But he's an AEW. He's doing a few things. I hope he turns a corner with the weight thing. I don't want to body shame him or anything. You do what you do, but it's clear that it is affecting him to an extent. So I hope that gets fixed.
I can speak from this. I used to weigh 320 pounds. I know how tough it is to get yourself to lose weight and get yourself to where you're at least not short of breath.
Yeah.
But in an athletic situation like that, you can be big, stocky, beefy boy. That ain't no problem.
No,
but it's the pulmonary and the cardiovascular stuff that you can see with your very eyes that you've seen with guys like Yoko who got too heavy and, bad stuff happened.
Quick comments real quick. So Swerve was on Swerve and Lee, I think, were on Rampage. They had a segment with who was it? The Acclaimed? No, it was with FTR. That's why they have their match. So that's this week. So that's something. That's a match. You'll see him on. So Swerve.
I think you fully turn Swerve heel, have him take out Lee after the match, send Lee off to get himself in order, and then launch Swerve's solo career.
Proved to be the biggest NXT fumble. Here's the only thing I think about that. I think is as crazy as this is going to sound because he was only on the main roster for like a hot minute, and he really didn't do anything on the main roster. He didn't do anything on NXT either, so I don't consider him a fumble. I think that was just a WWE fumble in general. They signed him. They never really did anything with NXT. They put the North American title on him, and then he never defended it for like 4 months. His first defense was the one he lost, and then he went to the main roster. And Hit Row was hot, and then they got rid of it.
To be fair, he was on fire with Hit Row at NXT before they called him up to let him go in a month. Santos put him over. His promos with Santos were amazing. Santos roasted him in different ways. But anyways, it was amazing.
I loved it. And when he was in NXT, I'm just saying like they didn't really do anything with him, and that was the problem. Like the Hit Row thing came and it was hot. It was a big thing. They put the North American title on him, and then they're like, "You're not going to defend it." It was like Dean Ambrose with the United States title back in the day. It's like, yeah, we're going to give you the title, but you're not going to do anything with it. You're just going to carry it around. And it was like, bro, why would you do that to this man? And David gave his own take. Nakamura, this guy was off the charts in New Japan. His match with Wrestle Kingdom was AJ. Is much watched. NXT run amazing. Main roster has been ongoing dud, complete swing and miss. I will say this about Nakamura because I do like Nakamura. He has charisma for days. I think a lot of people, if they had his charisma, they'd be much better off. I just don't think his style has connected with the WWE audience. I think that's the biggest fumble with Nakamura. That's my opinion on it. Keith's so likable is the problem with a heel turn. It may just not take square peg round hole situation. And I think it's just the kind of the audience of today. The audience of 20 years ago is significantly different than the audience of today. Whereas most people today are like, I'm smart to the business. I know this guy isn't really this way, so I'm not going to hate him because he's a really good wrestler. Whereas 20 years ago, that wasn't the case. There were still heels and faces where you could be a heel and people were like, yo, this guy's a dastardly son of a bitch. And I think when you have somebody who does that is like, dude, you're a prick. Don't talk to me like that. I think it would have been magic. It's showing how absolutely 100%. That's probably why they hit him up and like, hey, you good? You want to come back?
Was he one of the guys that Hunter reached out to? Swerve?
I would have when I heard the news.
Reportedly.
When I heard the news, that was the first one that came to my mind was Swerve because they were bringing back Hit Row, and I was like, well, why wouldn't they? Because Swerve is awesome. Like,
how long is Swerve under contract to TK?
He's probably under there for a good minute.
Yeah.
Yeah,
at least 2-3 years.
The OG3 because they're saying that's all we really need is us. They keep saying OG3.
Yeah,
it means without.
You need Swerve, bro. They need Swerve, and Swerve has gone on record as saying like he's happy. Like he said, they've used him better in the first 3 months in AEW than WWE did their entire time with him, which is 100% accurate. Anybody that doesn't agree with that is you silly AF because it's true. It's 100% true. But now to mine. I don't think it's any secret. Booyah. Just joking. It's not going to be Undisputed Era. They never made it the main roster, and that's a damn shame in itself. But since they never went, I can't say they fumbled him on the main roster. So with that, hold on, let's get this comment out real quick. Yeah, he's very happy where he is. They're utilizing him well, and he gets to go off and wrestle other places. So he's good. He's not going back. That ain't happening. Boom. Aleister Black.
Oh.
Okay, I want to hear this one.
Okay. In NXT, kind of like we were just talking about with Swerve in AEW, when I watch him, I'm like, he's different. And not only is he different, he's good. Like
good,
he has
different
a style that makes me be like, I want to watch this guy wrestle. I want to see him succeed. I want to see him go against these top guys. I want to see him against the Omegas, the Moxleys, the Danielsons, the MJ. I want to see it because he has it to me. When I really kind of like, because I didn't start tuning into NXT until right around the era of Aleister Black, Andrade, Johnny Gargano, Ciampa, and all that. I went back and watched all the old stuff, and I was like, yo, this is fantastic. But it was that era that I was like, I loved it. It's the only thing that comes close to my 96 to 98 WCW days. It's the only thing that even comes close to it. Aleister Black was a guy who stood out because he was different. And not only was he different, that dude's style was just incredible to me. Yeah, you can, because he wasn't there the whole time. He was literally put on the show. They had people knocking on his door. No, go get somebody. Because in NXT, he was no nonsense. He just went after you, kicked your freaking head off, and that was it. And he was having phenomenal matches with the likes. The Velveteen Dream, I know that's a name people don't want to hear, but kiss my butt. The Velveteen Dream program he had was awesome. And it was literally over something as simple as say my name. And Velveteen and Alice was like, good. Yeah, Alice was like, no.
No, he won't say
so Velveteen was like, you're gonna say my name. Whether I win or lose, you're gonna say my name. And that was what it was based off of. And it was awesome. His stuff with Ciampa was awesome. Andrade. We could talk about Andrade, but that's not NXT fumble. That was someone else. But that's for another day. Everything Aleister Black did in NXT, I was just like, I love it. I cannot wait to see him on the main roster. His entrance and presentation, which I think is a huge thing. That's why I'm so high on people like Jade Cargill, even though she's not that great. Her presentation is through the charts. It's phenomenal. So Aleister Black, the whole coming up from the stage like that, the music, the smoke and everything, it was so fucking cool. And again, he can go. And not only can he go, tell me another wrestler that wrestles like Aleister Black.
Like I said, like you said, he was different. He was good. Yeah, he was good different.
Yes, it was a good thing. And when he showed up in AEW, when he debuted, I was like, oh shit, yes. I was so pumped, so excited because they debuted him brilliantly. The presentation was there. And again, there's just something about him. He has that it factor. It's like Tidey was saying with Shane, a tattooed badass. That's what Aleister Black is. He's a tattooed badass that had the whole package. And WWE said, let's just have him sit in a room and have people knock on his door to look for a fight. What the bro? That is so silly. And then literally the only thing they did good with him was have him wrestle Buddy Murphy 20 times in a row. And that just got old after a while too. So that to me, it wasn't the biggest. I think Keith Lee was the biggest one. But Aleister Black, it might be the one that kind of upsets me the most just because of how much potential was there. We always talk about these dark characters that can fill in the Undertaker's place. No one's going to fill in the Undertaker's place. It's not doable. But you can have people that kind of like Bray had the possibility of kind of, I don't know, being a lesser version. Malachi Black, Aleister Black, a lesser version of it, like a watered down version of it, but just at the same time their own being. I don't know if I'm even saying it the way I want it to.
No, you're right. I know.
I just think these are the kind of characters you could really build something off of. These are the kind of characters that could be heels that are just dastardly assholes, and they're just like, let's do this with them instead. And it's like, why? You couldn't have missed with Aleister Black, and they did. That's mind blowing to me. Let's see.
Man.
I watched his interview with Renee about that time frame. He was coming up with idea after idea, and he said, "Yep, we'll get back to you 7 months later." Then release them. I do have a theory on why he was released. I'll talk about it in a second. Jade's an interesting story with Nyla at the moment. I don't find it interesting. It's not. That's just not me though. Come on, this clicker thing pissed me off. Tommy's very unique with his in-ring work, not unique like 100%. With Aleister, I do find it funny that people always complain that they couldn't get in conversations with Vince, but in that interview he's talking about, maybe it wasn't, I think it was with Jericho. He talked about, I talk to Vince all the time. Vince didn't get me, but he thought it was a good idea. They just never went with his idea. And as far as his release, he debuted, attacked Big E, and then was released a week later. I know WWE likes analytics. This is just a touch on the release thing. I still am mad that they released him. This is their fault that he didn't get this kind of hype. But when he did the release, he was gone for 7 months, as he pointed out. So when he comes back, it's like it should be treated as a big deal. It should be looked at as a big deal. And within like 5 days on YouTube, it only generated like 33,000 views. That's not something that they look at and say, we should probably invest in that. I get their reasoning behind it, but at the same time, it's their fault. That's what I think. That's why.
Here's what I'll throw out to you in there. You mentioned, trying to replace Undertaker. You're never going to get another Undertaker.
No,
you're never going to get another Steve Austin. You're never going to get another insert whatever. And this is something that I've really been thinking about the last few years as I've studied more, I've studied wrestling, but, starting to study booking and promoting and how guys in the territories and how promotions now work. It's the reverse James Bond complex. Because think about the most successful, longest running movie franchise, apart from probably Star Wars, longest running, but hasn't made as much money as Star Wars, but the longest running, and it's still very successful. They've changed James Bond multiple times. Yeah, it's still the same name, but each time it's a different actor that brings their own thing to it.
He's a different person too. I didn't realize this until later on, but they just take on the name James Bond. They're all their own individual person. So
promoters and bookers and fans have this in their head that, oh, well, we've got to have the next Ric Flair, the next Steve Austin, the next Undertaker. No, you don't. You just need that next guy on the roster who is capable of doing what that guy did, either gimmick-wise, locker room general-wise, work rate, whatever. When you lose a big cog in the machine like that, you have to have someone step in and fill it. But they try to think, oh, well, it has to be the same. No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
but that they have to be able to do the important things as well as that guy. And that's the problem that they get themselves into, is they start thinking, oh, Aleister Black, we were making the next Undertaker, pal. No, let him just be Aleister Black.
I'm glad you brought that up because it helps me get my point across. You don't want the next Undertaker. You want a guy that people can look at and remind them of Undertaker, but say that's not him. That's Aleister Black. Like this Aleister Black guy reminds me a lot of what Undertaker was doing. I'm interested. You don't want him to think like, oh, he's just another Undertaker. You want him to think this guy just kind of reminds me of that thing that I loved. Maybe I'll love this one as well. And they would, because again, he's fucking awesome. He is so good.
They didn't need to change his presentation. They didn't need to change any of it. I love that.
They added that damn creek to the lip. Oh,
yeah. Why is this Halloween?
I wanted to stab somebody, bro. like shut up, man. Let's just let the man come up out the fog.
The Addams Family, like from the 70s. What is this?
Yeah. Actually, that was the 50s, I believe. The 50s or the 60s.
Like what the sound effect nonsense, dude. That was silly. But
it's gimmicking a gimmick.
But that's the show. We run in the same time every week. We're gonna get it to an under hour one time. I promise you, it's going to happen. And when we do, it's going to be magical. Until then, just deal with the extra minutes, people. Just deal with it. We're talking good stuff, though. You shouldn't be upset about it. You shouldn't be upset about it at all. Just one last time, Steven Seagal up in the chat. He appreciates it. Look at that stern look. He goes, "This is very interesting." As he sits on his horse.
He's looking at the menu McDonald's trying to decide if he wants a single quarter or a double quarter.
Bro, he's looking at this guy saying, why has he got a helmet on his head?
That is it, man. You know what? You're going to say Swerve can be world champ one day. When JD McDonough is going to change people's minds and be like, dude, that dude can be world champ someday. Like world champ. He's going to change minds. God, don't bring up that hair, man. It's fine. Some people, I don't got hair. I'll take it.
Jimmy, for a man with a hairdo like yours, you sure do have a hell of a lot of nerve making fun of dudes. Hair
Bro, tell me that don't look like a helmet. Tell me.
It looks like he had a helmet on at some point.
That's all I'm getting at. That's all I'm getting at, man. He got a big old bobblehead. But JD is awesome. I'm not
leave a brother's locks alone.
He's awesome. I'm not taking anything from him. He's very, very good in the ring. And very, very creepy looking guy. Anyway, KO said that himself. I'm allowed to repeat what KO says. We're not going to say KO was wrong, so I'm allowed to say it. I'm allowed to. That's the show, everybody. I appreciate you tuning in. I'm pretty sure they appreciate you tuning in as well. I can't speak for them, but I just did. With that, we will sign off. Tidey, you got anything you want to say? You want to plug? You want to do anything before we go and say goodbyes?
Nah, man. I don't got, man. You gonna gave my boy a ball head cut thing. It was a bad angle. The angle, it was like at the 70-degree turn. Let me see if I could even accomplish that. That's not fair, man. But anyways, him and Sheamus, Becky, who else? Finn. Man, they're representing Ireland very proudly right now. I couldn't be happier as a wrestling fan. Some of the people from the UK are doing some damn good work, and they're bringing UK pride with Ilya and them right now. Stuff's good. Walter's already here, man. Some good things going on.
And wait, what we got here? What about you, El Capitan? Do you have anything you would like to say before we sign off?
Take a look at the
you and boot you if you try to cut a promo on my show. No, I'm just joking. You go ahead if you want to. I'm just joking.
I cut promos on you on my show. I will respect the same courtesy as you've shown me tonight. Check out we had a busy weekend. Captain's Table new episode just yesterday. The new episode, Who Booked This Shit, with Dan from the Sweet Chinwag podcast. I knew going into the day that I was going to really enjoy working with Dan because I've always wanted to since I got to Wrestle Buddy, but I didn't know I was going to enjoy it this much. Thank God I had my shades on because I was crying rivers of tears from laughing so hard. The table is our classroom. That's our history thing. Who Booked This Shit is more of, let's just sit down and watch some of the most god-awful dreck that's ever been unleashed onto the planet and tear them up appropriately for it. So check that out. They're both on YouTube. And obviously tomorrow, the final showdown in the Buddy Wars. There will be a winner tomorrow between the King and the Captain. I just actually finished getting my last bits polished today on it. I will say this, I won't cut a promo on you, but I will say I'm more proud of this book than any of the others I've done. This was a pleasure to do, as apart from the last one, because I was trying to correct Vince Russo's mistake. This actually got a decent roster that, got to do some things that I always want to do and got to
a great roster, if we're being honest. I think it was a great roster.
I won't say what I did because that'll spoil the surprise, but I think any modern or historical wrestling fan will see the nice mix and mesh that I did on the show.
And that's Buddy Wars tomorrow, everybody. That will be, I think, 5 o'clock Central
5 p.m.
time.
Central Time.
11 o'clock UK time. Tidey's time, I think it's 3.
Yeah.
You're 2 hours behind me or 3 hours behind me?
I'm 2 hours behind you.
Okay, so yeah, 3 on the west coast. As Amanda said, I don't make the rules; she just writes them. Just going down, Cap. And just this right here, I didn't cut a promo. I had nothing to do with that. It's just facts of life. That's not a bad angle, and look at that helmet head.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, now that one I will buy. That is hideous.
I had to get it in there. Sorry, I had to.
First one not so bad. That one, yeah, that is god awful.
I had to get it in there. Tidy again.
Oh,
I think Tidey's awesome, man. I'm just giving you a hard time. I love it. I'm trying to entertain the masses here, all 3 of the viewers. So what I will say about Buddy Wars is the first round I got to do the invasion angle, which I was stoked. I don't think I sunk my teeth into it as much as I could have, and it didn't end up being as good as I wanted it to. The second round, I got to do an era of wrestling that I paid no attention to as far as WWF goes. At that point, I tuned in for Razor. I didn't follow anything else. I didn't care. I was watching WCW at that point. This one, I am super stoked because it's WCW. I get a chance to fix my baby. And I will say, much like I did with the Raw or the WWF 95 era, I went into this one booking it as if I was in 1999 still. I kept it as true to 1999 as I could. I kept it as true to WCW as I possibly could. You couldn't at that point do it fully because WCW had just gone so far gone. They were just so far gone. I couldn't do it completely WCW. I'm very excited for it. I have no doubt in my mind that Captain has booked something not as fantastic, but fantastic in its own right for WCW Starrcade. I know he's a WCW guy. I have no doubt that he put a lot of time and effort into it as well. I don't think anyone's going to be disappointed with what we give you tomorrow at 5 o'clock Central Time on the Wrestle Buddy YouTube channel.
As I was telling Nick, I would not be surprised if Jimmy and I wind up working 2 or 3 angles fairly similarly, with given our WCW love and the roster we have to work with. So it will not surprise me if we copy each other a little bit on something.
I think we'll have 2 matches on the card the same. If I'm going to go ahead and throw that number, I think we'll have 2 of the same matches.
Yeah, I was thinking at least 2 angles.
But if you're a WCW person, in the least, don't miss the show. I promise. I really take heart.
Must watch TV.
I really take heart to it because I loved it so much. And the chance to go in and have the opportunity to fix where it all started, just the wheels completely just fell off. I could stop it with this booking. I took that probably more seriously than I should have. It's a booking wars, Buddy Wars game. And I was like, keeps. I'm fixing WCW right fucking now.
No, I'm fixing it.
Damn way. That's how I took this. So don't miss it. It's going to be good. Raw recap as well tomorrow. I have a busy day tomorrow, but then I am done for the week. So check out the podcast from earlier. That was informative stuff for you. It's at Wrestle Buddy. Check out who booked this shit. I haven't watched it yet, but I have no doubt that it's funny.
Drip, you will Drip King,
yeah.
you will love it. Dan was awesome.
Geek Buddy. If you have not checked out the Geek Buddy, it's not Geek Buddy, it's the Geek Buddy. We got some stuff coming out for you. I'm working up on something right now that's probably going to piss some people off, but you're just going to have to deal with it. But we're
How many
really
times have you prefaced a work with that?
We're really about to start like pushing some stuff out on YouTube for the Geek Buddy channel. So if anime, movies, video games, TV shows is your deal, get your butt over there and subscribe. If you haven't done so, which I don't think most of you have, do it now. And then make sure you're following the Twitter page. We got stuff for you. It's coming out. If you have an opinion on Halloween ends, stay tuned. Get your butt on the Geek Buddy and stay tuned because I got something for your ass. With that, I will say my goodbyes. And man, we went a whole show without talking about them, so I'm gonna put them up as we say goodbye. Sorry, Captain.
Sammy, we love you so much.
You just so happen to be in the target area. So everybody, thank you again for joining me. I rambled on another 5 minutes past the last goodbye, but this is the real goodbye. So we will see you again next week for the 10th episode, in which will be a spectacular, phenomenal, grand something. I'll come up with something. It'll be there, or it might just be the same old show. You don't know unless you tune in. So goodbye, everybody. Much love. Man, I hate hitting that button.